Welcome back, everyone, to another Explainer. Let's get right into it. Today, we're doing a masterclass on some of the absolute most heavily scrutinized codes in the medical billing world, non-face-to-face evaluation and management services. When the patient isn't actually sitting right there in the exam room with you, the billing rules change drastically. It is so easy to trigger a denial if you aren't paying close attention. So let's dive in and master these guidelines together. Here's our roadmap for today. We'll start with non-face-to-face services, then look at online digital E&M codes and their exclusions. After that, we'll pivot to interprofessional consultations, consultant rules and exclusions, and finally, wrap everything up. All right, Section 1, non-face-to-face services, virtual guidelines. Take a look at this block of text from the 2026 CPT manual. Yeah, it's dense. These guidelines require meticulous attention to detail. The AMA put these very specific guardrails in place to clearly separate a separately billable digital service from work that's just, bundled into your standard office visit. Moving on to Section 2, online digital EM codes, codes 99421 through 99423. Okay, the secret sauce is right here in this definition. For a provider to bill an online digital E&M, 3 very specific things absolutely have to happen. Number 1, it's got to be patient-initiated. The patient has to reach out with a digital inquiry, usually through a secure, HIPAA-compliant EHR portal. Number 2, it is strictly for established patients only. No brand new patients here. And number 3, you bill based on the cumulative time spent evaluating and managing the problem over a 7-day period. So, how do we actually pick the code? You map that cumulative time over those 7 days. If the provider spends 5 to 10 minutes reviewing the inquiry, checking records, responding with a plan, boom, that's 99421. 11 to 20 minutes, that's 99422. And 21 minutes or more lands you at 99423. Now, quick side note, anything under 5 minutes, you just don't report it at all. If you chunk these thresholds in your head, 5, 11, and 21, it'll make your certification exams and your daily coding an absolute breeze. On to Section 3, Digital EM Exclusions. Avoid claim denials. Listen, if there is literally one thing you take away from this first half of our explainer, let it be this magic number, 7. 7 is the ultimate gatekeeper when we're talking about digital EM codes. Let me break down exactly how that 7-day rule works. If a patient comes into the office for a visit and then, sends a digital inquiry for that exact same problem within 7 days of that visit, you cannot report the digital E&M separately. Nope, it is considered part of the previous encounter's management. On the flip side, if that digital inquiry is super complex and actually leads to an in-person or synchronous telehealth visit within 7 days of them reaching out, you still don't report the digital code. All that provider work just rolls right into the resulting visit. Basically, you've got a strict 7-day buffer on both sides. Section 4, Interprofessional Consultations, Provider to Provider. Now, these codes are actually pretty fascinating. An interprofessional consultation happens when a treating physician, like a primary care doc, asks for an expert opinion from a specialist. This is entirely non-face-to-face. The specialist just reviews the records and gives advice back to the treating provider via phone, internet, or EHR without ever physically seeing the patient. Think of it like a classic curbside consult, but now it's actually been formalized into a billable service. Check out how incredibly dense these rules are in the manual. You've got different codes depending on the time spent, whether it's mostly a verbal discussion or if it's just a written report. But hey, don't let this wall of text intimidate you. We're going to distill this into a super simple framework right now. All right, here is the breakdown for the specialist, the consultant who's actually giving the advice. Codes 99446 through 99449 scale by cumulative time, going from 5 minutes all the way up to 31+ minutes. Now, the absolute crucial catch for these 4 codes is that more than 50% of the service time must be devoted to medical, consultative, verbal, or internet discussion, and it has to conclude with a written report. But wait, what if the consultant just reviews the records and sends back a written report without that interactive verbal discussion? That is exactly where 99451 comes in. That code is specifically for 5 or more minutes of consultative time that results in only a written report. So here we have the two sides of the transaction. You've got the consultant codes we just looked at, billed by the specialist, but what about the treating provider who asked for the help in the first place? Well, they can actually bill for their time too, using code 99452. However, watch out, there is a very specific threshold here. They have to spend 16 to 30 minutes in a single service day preparing for that referral or communicating with the specialist. If they only spend, say, 10 minutes, they can't bill 99452. You absolutely have to hit that 16-minute minimum.
Section 5. Consultant Rules and Exclusions. Strict Coding Constraints. Okay, remember how 7 was the magic number for patient digital E&M? Well, 14 is the critical constraint for interprofessional consultations. Lock this number into your brain right now.
Here is how the 14A rule functions in the real world. First, the specialist consultant cannot have seen the patient face-to-face within the prior 14 days because, if they just saw the patient last week, this isn't a new consultation, it's just ongoing management. Second, if this doctor-to-doctor chat actually results in a transfer of care, or it leads to the specialist scheduling an in-person visit with the patient within the next 14 days, you can't report these consultation codes. That consultative work just becomes pre-work for the upcoming face-to-face visit. Finally, Section 6, wrapping up virtual coding. Master the guidelines. Look, if you master these time thresholds, your coding is going to be compliant, accurate, and completely denial-free. Just remember the 7-day window for digital EMM to avoid overlap with office visits, and that 14-day window for consultations to make sure the specialist isn't already actively managing that patient. As virtual care and telehealth continue to rapidly evolve, the real question is, how will your practice adapt internal workflows to make sure you're capturing every ounce of revenue you deserve without accidentally triggering an audit? Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Decode Healthcare with Harshal.